Okay, hello everyone. How are you doing? This week we are going to do a CBA. A CBA is something that you may have already done in your career. It is probably the most common data analysis technique, and this is throughout not just healthcare, but through most businesses. Most of my students who do come back and say, hey, I use this at work, say they use the CBA. Many of them start using this right after they graduate. So this is one, if there's one I want you to remember, I want you to remember this one. And this is the one that I got to help create. So it's also kind of a passion project for me. So let's get started. If you click into the assignment, you will see the same as last week, some links so that you can learn more about CBA. It is exactly as it's described here. We are going to look at the costs and the benefits of some different projects and decide which project to undertake. So if you haven't already, I would recommend doing the CDC train. It goes through CEA and CBA, and you can get certified, put that in your compass, and it's a really good, it's a good way to learn how healthcare is using this technique in practice. So I really encourage you to do that. Once you are finished, you can go, I recommend going here first and rereading our scenario. So our scenario is here. This is the title of it. And it goes over, once again, we're with Seahawk Medical Center still. And then it details some different results. The results that you're going to pay special note of are right here. We are going to be using these for the quiz this week. There's also some information you're going to want to remember from the sheet right here. So don't forget the initial scenario. That said, we can go back to our actual CBA, which is our second link here, and it's going to explain the project. A lot of times what happens is a facility has a certain amount of money that can be devoted to projects. So it could be for any sort of different department, and then they'll decide which department they want to give that money to. So that's basically what you're going to be doing. You're going to decide which team gets the project. So our first project is a UV disinfection robot, and you can read about it here. Then we have a med scanning technology. You can read about it here, or a surgery checklist technology. You can read what they do. And these are the things we're going to look at. You can tell that they don't have to do with the same department. So this isn't a departmental amount of funds. This is facility wide, and this is the most common application of CBA. So you're going to get to decide what project to select because, once again, our facility only has a certain amount of money. We have issues in a few different areas, but we're going to see which one we get the most benefit out of. So it's going to tell you at the bottom of this exactly what the password is to get into our file. So once we finish that, we can go into our actual file. And what you're going to notice here is this is our only data analysis file. It's our only Excel file for the week. So this is the only one you need to turn in, which is good. But I do recommend you copying and pasting it out. Because what happens is if you don't, is you can't get back in it, and you will use it in week 5 for our final quiz. So that's why I feel like it's super important for you to copy and paste these out. If you don't want to copy and paste them out, you can save the file with the password on top as part of the file name so you know how to get back into it for the quiz, because I don't want you to have to, every once in a while I have a student tell me, oh, I don't remember my password and now I can't do the quiz. And then you'll have to redo the entire assignment. And I don't want you to have to redo the assignment. So that's why I feel it's super important for you to go ahead and copy and paste these out. So to copy and paste them out, you'll just select them, drag and then you can click copy and then file new. And then you can just paste it right here, and then you're good to go. And then you'll do the other 2 tabs. You'll notice we have 3 tabs. You will copy and paste all 3 tabs into 3 different tabs. So these are our 3 projects that we have to choose from. And we're going to get started. I'm going to show you the projects are going to have the same calculations required. So I'm going to show you how to do one of the tabs, and then you're going to do the second and third yourself and determine which one to use. So first, I always like to go ahead and highlight all of the cells that I'm going to have to complete. We are going to find totals for both costs and benefits, because once again, we're doing a cost-benefit analysis. And we're going to have to do all those calculations. So I'm going to do these as well. Usually when you do a CBA, you either do it determined by the cost-benefit ratio, which is what I used when I used it for one of my master's degrees, or you could do the NPV IRR method, which if you're doing a finance type project, a lot of times they'll prefer that method. So I have you doing both. So that way you can kind of select, hey, do we want to do this method or this method? For purposes of this project, we are going to decide the best project by which one has the highest benefit cost ratio, because we want more benefits in this one. What you will notice when you finish this project is there will be one that has a higher NPV yet lower benefit cost ratio. So if you were to use the other method, it is possible that you would select a different project. And that was basically done so that you can kind of see, depending on what matters most, is it more the financial side of thing or is it the benefit side of thing? You may make a different choice. So I hope you find that useful to you. So to get started, we are going to start adding all of our benefits and costs. You can do it one of 2 ways. You can do equals and then click in a cell plus this cell plus this cell. And you can see, obviously, we don't have anything in here, but it will just leave that blank for us. And then you can just Control C and Control V and do the other totals for our benefits here. The other option that you have to do is you can do auto sum, and it's going to highlight all of those on its own. Sometimes what it does when it auto sums, it'll just highlight a few. And so if you get one where it's not highlighting all the numbers, you can push down on your left mouse and drag over until every single calculation that you want included in your sum is added together. And then you can Control C, which is copy the formula, and Control V to paste it. And now we're going to do the total. You can see it's going to total all 3 of my totals here, and you'll get $375,000 for the total benefits for UVD Robotics. Note here, this is the company and this is the product name. When we're using the passwords in an upcoming spreadsheet, you are going to use the company name, and it says company, but I think sometimes it's easy to go, oh, is it the company? Is this the product or the company? So make sure you think about you're going to want to use the company name for that password, because that sometimes trips people up. So what you're not going to want to do for your totals, see right here, we know it's $225,000. You don't want to do that. So if you do that, the problem with that is Excel is a master of math in a lot of ways, in that it can do lots of, really, really significant calculations. The bad thing is we don't know what's on the other side of these decimal places. Excel never rounds. I know it looks like it's rounding, but it isn't. And so you may put a calculation here. Maybe this is $225,000.50. If it is, when you get to the bottom, your calculation here will be just a little bit off, and that will make your quiz off. So whenever you're doing it, make sure to always remember Excel. If you remember from math class, you don't ever round until you have your final answer. So you don't do any intermediary rounding. So if you're doing one calculation and then a calculation with the next one, you wouldn't round until you got to your final answer. And so you want to make sure you don't do that here either. So we're not going to do that. And I'm going to show you, if you want to, like, say your quiz asks to round to the nearest, 10 cents or whatever. You can actually format your cells to give you that answer, because a lot of times you won't know if there's any cents here, because we don't know. Say this is $500.50. We don't know that. And so you can highlight all of these cells, right click format cells, and then see how it says decimal places. You can change that to 2. And then we know all of these, there's no cents. What you will find out is in another one of these tabs, there is cents. So one of them has like 50 cents or 75 cents. And if you do not total these using the equals auto sum or equals and then each one, you're going to get the wrong answer. So that's why I say this. So, okay, let's get started. Let's do the auto sum on this again, see how it's highlighted all of these for us. Once again, if it only highlighted these, sometimes it doesn't highlight all of them. You'll want to drag and drop so that it gets all the money here. And then we can do that the whole way down. We can click auto sum, see how it missed this cell here, which is just fine because there's nothing in it. But if it were, it would be a concern. And then, we can always, once we've done it once, we could do Control C, which is to copy, and Control V to paste. And here we could do the auto sum. See how it didn't get this right here? So if I just did the auto sum, I would only have $5,000. And we definitely don't want to see that. So we want to make sure when we're using auto sum, it pulls it all the way up. Auto sum is usually right over here up at the top on your home tab. And so you could also do the equals, and then you can highlight all these. See how it says C15 to C19. That'll help you to, equals. Oh, I'm sorry. It isn't working quite right today. So equals this plus this plus this plus this plus this. So you have all of those totals there, and then you can Control C and Control V it over. And then we can do our total right here, and it's totaling them all. We're going to have $295,000 in costs and $375 in benefits. So obviously, the first thing you look at is to make sure that your costs aren't larger than your benefits, because if they are, that's a problem. And then when I did it, actually the costs were kind of more than my benefits because of the way that I did it when I was doing it for my master's degree, but it was a government regulation. And so it didn't matter whether the costs were greater. You were looking basically for the lowest cost to get the benefits. And so, even something like that sometimes isn't always guaranteed, because the EPA was going to require this new thing. And so everyone had to figure out what they were going to use to monitor this particular gas. So, okay, moving on. We are going to now find the cost flow now that we have found our benefits and costs. So we're going to type in equals, and then it's yearly benefit minus yearly cost. So our yearly benefit minus the yearly cost. And you'll notice we have our numbers in parentheses. Is that weird? What that means is it means that's a negative number, because we have negative 230,000 in our benefits minus costs. Depending on how your Excel defaults, sometimes it's in red, but it doesn't have the parentheses. So you're going to want to note whether you have the parentheses or it in red. Those are the important aspects. And then since you've done it once, you could Control C and Control V it over if you want, or you can do it again using the formula equals benefits minus costs, E12 minus E20, and Control C, and you can do it the whole way across. And then at the end, we're going to see equals benefits minus our costs. And you see we have $80,000 as our net cash flow. Now we're going to figure out which project we're going to select. We know our costs and benefits. So remember, this is the financial way to determine, and the formula's right here, and this is the benefit cost way. This is really the economics way, and it's the way that I've used. So it's equals our benefits divided by our costs. and you're going to get a number here. Anything over 1 is a bonus. That means that your benefits are bigger than your costs. If you get less than a 1, obviously, kind of like I said before, if it's a regulation, you don't have any way out of it. You have to pick one of them if they're all negative. But if you're doing a project that you don't have to do, that isn't a regulation, you will not want to undertake any project where your benefit cost ratio is less than 1. So now let's do the finance side of things. What you're going to notice is this formula is more of a challenge than some of the other formulas we've done. There are a lot of calculations that go into finding the NPV. If you take a finance class, you'll find a lot of the finance class is related to this particular set of 2 formulas. So it does take a while to kind of gain some of that. Luckily, Excel is pretty proficient at doing it for us. So we are going to start the formula with an equals like we do our other formulas, and then do NPV, which is the first part of the formula right here, and then parentheses, cost of capital, which is cell B5. Cost of capital is how much it costs to borrow money. So if you get a loan, you have to have interest on that loan, and that's what this cost of capital, that's what it's saying. So if you get confused by that term, cost of capital, just think of the interest. And then we're going to do a comma because they have a comma in it. And then we're going to do net cash flows for year 1 through 5. Be careful, don't put year 0 in here. We're just doing 1 through 5. Be careful not to do the total here. So it's cell C22 through G22, and then a parentheses at the end, and then plus our net cash flow for year 0. And you're going to get an amount right here. So that is how that formula works. It does take a little bit. So if you go through it, I would recommend doing the spreadsheet first, making sure that you correctly enter this formula. You should get the number that I did. If you do, you're good to go. If not, maybe try it again. And then for your next formula, you have the IRR equals IRR, parentheses, net cash flow. This is the one where you reuse all 1 through 5. Special note, neither one uses this total right here, so be sure not to add that total in. You should have equals IRR B22 through G22, and then you'll get 11%. And here, if you want to look back over that NPV formula one more time, equals NPV parentheses B5, comma C22 colon G22 parentheses plus B22. The other special note is you must use parentheses in all of these. If you don't use the parentheses where they're needed, you won't get the correct answer. So be sure to do those. And then once you finish, you are going to do these 2 spreadsheets. They're exactly the same. And so start with this one, make sure you get what I get here, and then move forward. But once again, make sure to note that Excel does not round, and make sure to use either the equals and then type each cell with a plus, or auto sum. So that way you get the correct totals. So let's do this again. Let's say the quiz asks for you to find the benefit cost ratio for the disinfection robot to 1 decimal place. You see here we have like 10 decimal places. How your Excel defaults may not be exactly the same as mine, so yours may not default to this many decimal places. Mine just does. Every computer is a little different, and so you can right click here. It says we only want 1 decimal place, so we're going to format. And we have a lot of decimal places, so we are only going to want 1 decimal place. So now you'll see this is 1.3. But remember before it was 1.27 something something. So if your quiz asked for the nearest to the 2 decimal spots, you will have to go back and format cells and change it to 2 decimal places. And you're going to have a question on the quiz. I don't think it's this particular project, but you will have one where you have to round something to the nearest decimal place. And so you'll want to know how to change what is showing in here so that you know how to round. Obviously, if you're like, well, before, what did it have, 7 or 8? If you have this many and it says round to 2 decimals and you're really confident in your ability to round, remember 5 and up, round up, and below that round down. So if it says round, to 2 decimals, you'd say 1.27 here. So I hope that helps. Usually when you're rounding this one for any of our passwords, it's going to say round to the nearest dollar. So this one would round to 23,926. So we're going to round that 89 cents up to the next dollar. So you will be asked something like that as you go through. So what you're going to notice when you finish is you have all these other different PDF forms. So step 2 is a set of PDFs, but you are only going to enter into one of these files. You do not need to enter all 3 files. So you're going to select the project that you're going to choose, and you're going to enter in the password. I kind of give you in my hints and helps the password that you're going to want to use for that. And that will help you to kind of have an understanding of which one you're going to do. Like once you decide, you won't enter all 3. If you enter in the wrong one, say for instance, you decide, oh, it's going to be this other project, and you enter into it, it'll say, whoops, sorry, you selected the wrong project, go back again. So it will tell you, assuming you have the MPV correctly and you enter in the password correctly, it will tell you that you're wrong. So that is good. But it's kind of interesting because it's kind of a fun little thing it's like going into the wrong escape room. So I'm going to go into the correct file for this policy and procedure to kind of show you some things that you may want to look for as you get started. Okay, so it is going to have a file I'm going to bring over, and it's going to ask you about the file. This is a policy and procedure file, and it's going to have you look over it and read. We're going to institute some changes based on the project we picked. And in the quiz, it's going to ask you the name of the policy. And this is going to be the name of your policy and procedure. Students sometimes get confused on what you're supposed to write there. They'll pick the name of the product that's selected, but this is the actual policy that's going to change. And so you'll want to use that as your policy that it asks for. And then at the bottom, it's going to tell you some different things about what you're doing. And then it'll tell you you're going to use this code to open your post-implementation observation document. And you're going to go, oh, why would I need to do that? I already selected my project. Well, it's because on the quiz, you are going to have a few other questions that you're going to have to answer, and I'm going to explain those to you. So this is our final file. Once again, none of these need to be submitted. This is the only one that needs submitted. So let's go ahead and open it. And you'll see here's what happened. So we did this project, and now we have all these fun new changes, right? So we're going to look and see how did our data change. And remember when we first started the video, I said, hey, let's go to this file first. It's the initial scenario file, and it has some data about where we started. So you're going to compare that data from that initial scenario. It's going to be found here in that file, that top review file. And you're going to compare it to this data. And I have it already set up in a video or in a spreadsheet for us so that you can take a look and see some of the changes. And I'm going to clear this out before I move it over to show you. Okay. So what I did here is I took that initial scenario data and then I combined it with this in our post-implementation observation results, and I put them in a spreadsheet. Do you have to do that for the submission? Absolutely not. Will it help you on the quiz? Probably. And what you're going to notice is there really wasn't any change throughout anything except for our HAIs. So we had some different infections that were changed for the better. And so we had lower rates of infections. And so it's going to ask, hey, which one, how did we get, which one had the reduced number of infections the most? And what you can't do is because they all different start at different numbers, we can't just take this number minus this number because they're starting at different places. So we have to use a percentage change formula. Now, this is a formula you probably have not used since maybe the sixth grade. And so I'm going to go through with you how to use this formula so that way you have an idea. I'm also going to give you a mnemonic device to help you remember it. It's how I was taught to remember it. So if you want to remember it, this will help you. If you do anything, maybe in like a finance or administrative type financial role, you will use percentage change kind of a lot. But I use no with an extra O. So no, N-O-O. And so how you use this formula is you'll take an equals, like all of your Excel formulas start, and then a parentheses, your new total, which is right here. See, this is the post. So our new number, this is how many infections we're getting now, minus our old number. And so that's the first O. And then I'll do a parentheses divided by our old number, which is this one right here. So that's why it's no, N-O-O. So these are in parentheses, and then this one is by itself. So we can tell that we did 7.2% better in this particular formula, or this particular hospital-acquired infection. So now let's do the next one. And then I'll let you kind of do the rest of them after this one on your own, but this is a quiz question, so I want you to be prepared. So we'll do equals and then parentheses, and then we have our new number right here minus our old number, and then parentheses divided by our old number. And so that MRSA is pretty big. You're going to notice, that's pretty big percentage change. They've made a lot of changes in their facility on that. So do those preferably before you start the quiz, or you can. The quiz is really great. It doesn't have a time limit on it. So if you get flustered easily with data, it's one of those things where I would take your time when you're doing it and don't feel super stressed. If you finish it and you're like, oh no, I missed something, as long as you let me know by Saturday at midnight that you'd like to retake, I can let you retake it. I don't do any retakes after Saturday at midnight. And this, just because the goal in this class is really, especially with these assignments, is to get you confident in doing a CBA. When I first started doing mine, I had an advisor who was there to assist me. We did it a little differently. We weighted certain things, and there was just a lot to learn. And so the goal with this is for you to feel confident when you leave, to where if someone asks you to do this in the future, you don't dread it. And if you are asked to do this in the future and you're out working and you've left this class and you don't remember something, or if they're doing it maybe slightly different, if they add weights or they want certain things, you can always feel free to take my email and then email me and I can help you through it. So that way you feel confident as you're going along. So I hope that this video was helpful to you as you completed the assignment. As you get started, you are going to need to take a particular code for that week 5 quiz. And this is the number 965. You're going to ignore the decimal, but this 965 is going to be part of your final quiz in week 5. So make sure you remember C.diff post project implementation. So if you have questions, let me know. Come to an office hour, especially if you've taken this class before and are maybe retaking it for some reason. Make sure you're coming to the office hours, come to my Q&As. If neither of those work for your schedule, contact me and we can do something else. If you're super busy and are just like, man, I do not have time to meet with her, send your file over to me via email. Sometimes on the weekend, I'm not as available, and sometimes in the evenings, but during a weekday, I can get back to you really quickly. So send it over and I'll help you through it. And I hope you have a really good week, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye.